I see that your slides now are not showing. Can you
anymore? Okay, let me
check?
share.
Let me check now. Okay. Okay, I can share them on my site and then you can able
Okay,
to.
okay.
Yes, are you able to see them on your side?
Yeah, I can see them. Yeah, I can see them.
Yes.
So,
Sorry once again, colleagues, for delaying, and then I think Dr. Emmanuel can take over right now.
okay, so I can shift the slides. Is it possible for me from the side?
Yes, yes, Doctor. You are a moderator. You can able to move around the slides.
Okay. Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Dr. Emmanuel Rollins. I'm facilitating this topic, supervisor-student co-authorship, a balance between the ideal and reality. What we'll be looking at in this very short session, I call it short session because we want to be straightforward and to be able to get relevant information. So we're going to be looking at what UJ policy says about co-authorship. In the environment we work, the institution policies guide our practices. So it is important we start with what the policy is saying. So then we will look at expectation for authors and co-authors from publishers, because we're talking about how we can co-author and publish with our supervisors. So we look at the expectations and the regulations guiding publications in different journals. Then we now look at the cost and benefit of co-authoring with your supervisor. Then we'll end with dispute resolutions, how if dispute arise, because in human engagement, we should always anticipate dispute to arise. So we want to see what the institutional framework is to be able to settle disputes when they arise. So this is the UJ policy on authorship 2021 that tried to characterize who is an author and who is a co-author. The definition says that an author or a co-author must have made a significant, direct, and identifiable intellectual contribution to the conceptualization of the research design or the research itself, the conceptualization of the research and the design. Now it means when the conceptualization is the first process of your any kind of research work you want to do. How do you conceptualize it? So anybody that is involved in that conceptualization can and should be regarded as a co-author. Then that person also should be able to be joining acquisition, analysis, and interpretation of the data. In other words, the person was able to go into the field, get the data out, analyze in any form or shape. The person is involved in analyzing, acquisition, and interpretation of the data. That person is qualified to be a co-author to any output, any publishable output. So the drafting or content of the published output, any individual that is able to contribute to the drafting of the content of what is to be published can and should be named the co-author. Now, the person also should be able to contribute critically to the revision of the important intellectual content. So in any of these stages of the research process, if you are involved, you can become an author. And your supervisor most probably and definitely should be involved in all this process. So your supervisor is qualified to be a co-author to any article you want to publish. Now, other important points that the the policy stipulates is that there should be an agreement, an existing agreement between the authors on the content of the version to be presented or published. Also, there must be an agreement to be responsible for all the aspects to ensure that concerns related to the accuracy or integrity of the output or any other part of it are appropriately investigated and resolved. So this is the standing policy in the UJ community, and it stands as a rule that must guide co-authoring. So for you and your supervisor to co-author, these are the lines you need to look at. These are the facts you need to look at when you want to co-author with your supervisor. Now, what is required in terms of from publishers publication guidelines? What is required? What do they require in terms of co-authoring? Now, there are different committees that are guiding publication ethics, such as the ICMJE, the CSE, the COP. These are committee that guidelines for publication practices to ensure that authors and co-authors are in line and follow best practices. So if you want to publish, part of the guideline, if you want to co-author with the supervisor, part of the guideline is that your supervisor must have contributed to the main research, which is absolutely a true, because they were part of the whole process. Now, for the paper you want to submit, the supervisor should be able to have written a portion of the paper submitted. And then the supervisor also should be able to review successful manuscript versions and participate in the revision process, because it's a back and forth process. When you submit an article to publishers, they look at it, they accept it, and then they make their comments if they feel like it's a publishable material or content. Now they send it to you and they make comments. So it's expected that the supervisor should be able to participate in all this process. That is indeed the reality of what should be. However, there are constant benefits when you want to co-supervise. And part of the cost and benefits, we start with the benefit, is that your supervisor will bring his expertise guide, and is also a form of mentoring. Your supervisor is also mentoring you. First, he has mentored you in how to do research. If you are a master's student, maybe how to be able to conduct research is the main focus. But if you're a PhD student, it is more of how you're able to contribute to the field of knowledge. So your supervisor gives you an expert guide, and also it's a process to be able to mentor you and make you a scholar. So the supervisor is also be able to bring in enriched content to make your content more valuable and more relevant, because they've been in the field for long as academics. So they're going to enrich your content for it to be accepted speedily and to be able to be published in real time. Also, one of the benefits is high level of credibility, because some of your supervisors already have a name because they've been publishers. And so when you attach the name of your supervisor to your manuscript and to your articles, it gets more visibility and it gets more cited. So the supervisor, also part of the benefit is that it's supposed to share workload with you, because of course is every academic work you're trying to write on, in terms of writing, is indeed a work that has a lot to need to flesh out. So the supervisor should be able to take some workload and then reduce the burden. Then improve skills. That is indeed a mentorship process. So after the whole process, you should be able to have learned something and improve your writing skills and be able to go forward in your academic pursuit. Now, but there are messy areas, there are costs. First off, about the cost is that if disagreement or major or minor perspective in the paper arises, in other words, your supervisor might be looking at a certain angle where he wants the paper to go, like the paper should be arguing in this direction, and you as a publisher and a coming up scholar, you want to pursue a certain belief, you want a certain perspective. So that conflict of interest is usually a cost you have to take. In other words, a typical example is I'm currently writing a paper that I want to be, advocating for cohabiting relationships in South Africa to be legalized. Now, I'm thinking I want to involve my supervisors in that paper, but I'm worried about their opinion about whether they agree to such kind of ideology I'm trying to propagate, because we are, as humans, we have our own perspectives, we have our own religious beliefs. So it's a tricky thing I want to do. So I'm really looking at it carefully if I should pursue that part or I should just publish, because this is my belief, strong belief, and I have evidence to back it up. So the disagreement might arise, and it has a way of delaying the paper, making the paper not coming out as you will want it. So usually, because of the power dynamics, you might succumb to your supervisor's perspective and the way they want the paper to go. That is a cost to pay and is a messy area. Okay, talking about busy schedule of the supervisors. Supervisors don't only do academic work. Many of them are also involved in administrative work in the university. So, and they have a lot of students to supervise. So usually their calendar is packed. They've just finished with you. They expect that you should give the way for other students to come in. So you want to also bring them in terms of co-publishing with them. And so it's a process that's going to be messy, sometimes delayed. Again, I have an experience in this because there's a paper I wrote and I wanted to involve one of my supervisors in that paper. And that was last year. So I sent my supervisor the manuscript and I wanted her to bring in her own ideas on the paper. She slept on that paper for more than just a year. So when she finally got back to me, she hinted that the paper that she needs it to be is about 6,000 words. It should go to like 8,000 words. Then I looked at it and I said, okay, let me rework that paper. I reworked that paper when I was ready. That is this year now. I was ready. I reworked that paper and I sent it to her. So see, I spent 1 year because she's a very busy person. I couldn't have gotten her to maybe shift her other schedules to attend to the paper I want to publish with her. So finally, when I sent in the paper, she looked at it. There was still some delay. I had to now call the admin, speak to the admin. I was bombarding her with emails. Then when she finally replied to me, it was like, okay, the paper is good. I've read through. You can submit the way it is. So it goes to the point of longer time to finish, because if you're working with a supervisor, it would take you a longer time to finish. If you're working alone, it will take you shorter time, because if you're working alone, when you send in the paper, the comments come in, you redraft your manuscript and you send it back, and then the back and forth, and it will be on good time. But if you are working with a supervisor, be sure that it gets to our next point that you might be the one doing the whole work. You might be the one doing the entire work. because your supervisor might not be available to be able to contribute in those respects. But some supervisors really could be able to do that. It is now had to be by your luck and maybe the workload of your supervisor. So you should also anticipate a situation where you will be working alone on the whole process. Whereas it is a requirement that the co-authors, that those co-authors in a paper should be able to make substantial input into the paper. So in that process, another cost again is that if you feel like bored and you're worried about the whole process, you want to remove your supervisor from the paper, it might be tantamount to burning bridges, and which will affect your relationship, and you don't want to lose that relationship you have with your supervisor. I'll advise that if you have a supervisor, one first move you should make after you finish your course is to maintain a good relationship with your supervisor. So these are the messy areas you will see when you go into that. Now, dispute resolution. Now, dispute might arise in the process. So therefore, if dispute arise while you're authoring your supervisor, there's a process the university has laid down that you must follow to address those grievances. First, you need to be able to send a written complaint to your HOD, or in other instances, maybe if it's a center, to the head of the center. So who is your head, your line manager? You need to be able to send that complaint, and then they will look at it and try to reach a conclusion. If you're not satisfied with the conclusion they've reached, you can now send in also a written complaint to the executive dean. Now, the executive dean will consult the research committee or the research ethics committee or relevant committees and boards in the faculty, and then to be able to reach a conclusion on this dispute. Yet, if you're not satisfied with the conclusion reached and the decision reached, you can forward your complaint to the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Research. The Deputy Vice Chancellor of Research, he or she will consult the Senate Research Ethics Committee on the matter, and then they will arrive at a conclusion which will be final. Now, concluding points. You must understand that co-authoring with your supervisor is a fluid process. It can be this way, it can be that way. So don't expect that it has to be in a strict form. For instance, my colleague was having a supervision session with, she was co-authoring with her host, and indeed the process was not as she anticipated, to the point that there were really what the supervisor wanted to be in that paper that she didn't think that should be in that paper. So it's a fluid process. You don't know where it's starting, where it's going to end. Again, it's about good relationship and understanding. What makes co-supervision sessions very effective is about you having a good relationship and good understanding with your supervisor. If that is in place, supervision gets easy without any itches. So you don't want to break the relationship you've already established. You want to maintain it, and also you want to build on that, because this co-authoring can lead you into publishing doing other collaborations and publishing other papers. So also bear in mind that it's a kind of apprenticeship. You are learning on how to be able to be a good scholar and to publish. Now, you also
sorry,
need to,
Dr. Emmanuel, the noise again is like,
yeah, a lot of
can't hear
crowds
you now.
walking around. You're walking around here, so
Okay, no
I
problem.
can't control this crowd.
You can go ahead, but we have to hear you.
Okay, let me change position, please.
Yes, now it's better.
It's better now.
Yes, very better. We can hear you clearly. Dr. Emmanuel, are you still there? Sorry, colleagues, I think Dr. Emmanuel lost the connection. We see that he's reconnecting. So can you just give him a minute to reconnect and he'll be with us shortly.
Hello, are you hearing me?
Yes, doctor, we can hear you now.
Okay, so sorry for that. It was a network break. And so then you need to be able to discuss early and often with your supervisor, because the key here is communication. To be able to communicate with your supervisor, to know the position of a supervisor, the supervisor you're co-authoring, know the state of things, so that there should be that often and back and forth conversations. Then work plan and division of labor and deadlines, to be able to navigate into the potential problems you're going to be likely to face in terms of the supervisor's contribution. So you should devise a work plan and a distribution of division of labor and deadlines. So your supervisor will be able to see and follow that. But sometimes it's not the case, because the supervisor wants you to work more and to learn during this process. So last word is that be patient with the process. Be patient with the process. It's an experience. You're going to learn something new, and that will make your writing better. The whole idea of co-authoring is that papers that are co-authored are more cited because of the content, because the belief in academics is that when two intellectuals come together, collaborate, and bring up a certain paper, the content is usually rich and valuable. So now I think, conclude my. Thank you so much for your time. Any other questions now, we could engage and have a conversation on what I've shared. And if anybody has any want to share their experience with us, I think it's open for them to share this experience.
Yes, Sheila, you can go ahead.
Hello, good afternoon, doctor.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, yes. I just wanted to ask, what if you're an academic at another institution and your supervisor is at UJ? Can you write articles together?
Yes, I mean, it is advised. It's advised that you leave your institution and co-author with other scholars outside your institution. It's also more advised that you even collaborate with other scholars outside the country. I mean, is a high mark if you are able to collaborate on any paper with publishers or scholars from outside the continent or within the continent but outside South Africa. So, yes to your question.
Okay, so will it be sort of colleague to colleague, or will it be student to supervisor, sort of like?
You can collaborate with anyone.
Okay,
The most important thing is that you should be sure that they will be able to bring or make a valuable contribution to the content.
okay,
It's about what the person has to offer. Is the person bringing in his or her name they've made in the academics to the paper, or this person will be able to contribute to the content of the paper to the point that you are going to be learning, because collaboration makes you to learn. You learn new ways of doing things, new styles of writing, new skills, because that's
okay. Well, the reason I'm asking was, like, if you're a student and you are an academic at another university and you have to write with your supervisor at UJ, your name will not appear on that paper. So I was kind of confused because you are being taken as a student, not as an academic. I'm not sure if my English is English in here. I'm an academic at another institution, but when I write with my supervisor, it will be more like I'm a student and my name will not appear on that paper. So I sort of didn't understand that part.
Yes, like I got a question clearly. I think doctor is having network issues once again. He's reconnecting. I don't know if you got the question.
so is the network. I think is going on and off.
Okay. Should
Yes,
I
doctor.
repeat the question?
Did you get the
Yes,
question,
please.
doctor?
Yes, please. The question.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm an academic at another institution, right?
Yeah.
So now I was told that if I write with my supervisor at UJ, right, my name will not appear because at UJ I'm considered a student. So my name will not appear on the paper, only the supervisor's name.
I think they must have informed you wrongly, because if you look at the policy that guides publication in UJ, it was
Mm-hmm.
emphasized that the co-author can be anyone that is in the institution or that has left the institution.
Okay.
So for the fact that you were, and if you look at other criteria, you find out that
Mm-hmm.
for the fact that the two of you were involved in terms of
Yes.
conceptualization, drafting, revisions, then
Yes.
definitely you become a co-author. Now, one thing is clear: if you are able to be involved in any of those processes I've highlighted, if you are excluded from, that's why many journals or publishers will ask you if there's a conflict of interest.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a classic case of conflict of interest. If you co-author with your supervisor and then your name does not appear, you can lodge a complaint, because
Okay.
it is part of your intellectual property, and so there is no way you can be excluded from your intellectual property.
Okay. And whose name should appear first? Mine
Now,
or the
definitely,
supervisor?
yes, those are things that need to be decided.
Ah,
You
okay.
and the person you're co-authoring, we need to discuss that before you even begin the process. It's not usually when the process is done, it's usually before you begin the process. That's why I said discuss early, so that will be fleshed out at the beginning. So if you feel like your supervisor should be the first author, because and because of you want visibility and maybe acceptance, and because of the name, then you can do that. But ordinarily, that is your intellectual property. If you're publishing from your master's or from your thesis, your master's thesis, and from your doctorate dissertation, that's basically your intellectual property at first hand. So, like the papers I'm publishing with my supervisor, definitely I'm the first author. So you are supposed to be the first author, but if you think like you want to give out that place for your supervisor, it's business best known to you and is accepted in the practice.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. So, so any other question or maybe experience you like to share, like how is it going with your co-authoring? If you want to share an experience with us, the floor is open. Now, in terms of burning bridges, I have an experience to share. Now, when I started my postdoctorate fellowship, I got a new supervisor. So, but now in this center, they want me to publish for my PhD thesis. However, my supervisor, even when we finished our work, have indicated that she wants to publish with me. So while I was with my new supervisor, my host per se, there's a paper I constructed, the manuscript I gave to her. She looked at it. We've already started the paper. Then my supervisor came in and like, no, we need to meet, we need to talk. So I told her what I was doing, and then she said, I would like to collaborate with you on that paper. And the very paper my supervisor said she wants to collaborate with me is that very paper my host started up with me. So indeed, there was really, really, I was in a dilemma. I couldn't tell my supervisor who has contributed to the paper from the conceptual stage. So I wouldn't be able to tell her no to what she's maybe requesting. So I think that really didn't, I feel strongly that really didn't go well with my host, because my host was involved in the process of that, and she liked that article and wanted to be involved. So such kind of, conflicts will arise in it when you want to publish, like publishing with your supervisors. Different dynamics of conflicts will arise. So how you manage this problem is how you manage the problem is critical, because you might burn bridges at that process, and you wouldn't want to do that. So does anybody have an experience they want to share? So, or you have an issue you want to see how you could be advised properly, or a question?
Yes,
Okay.
Kumbulan, you can go ahead.
Sorry.
I'm seeing a hand from Kumbulan.
Oh, okay.
Thank,
Okay.
thank you very much, Doc, for the informative session. I just wanted to find out. I'm a first year PhD student, so I wanted to find out that is publishing with your co-authoring with your supervisor, does it have any bearing in terms of the final attainment of my qualification, especially maybe if it's something that is within the scope of my study, but not directly in terms of my dissertation or my thesis? Does it have a direct bearing in the attainment of my qualification?
It depends on the institution. Are you a UJ candidate? Are you a candidate in UJ?
Yes, yes.
Okay, it depends on the institution. For institutions, there are some people that get their PhD based on publications, but for UJ, you have to do a proper thesis, and then you're also required to be able to now draft two articles, just a draft of two articles, not like you published it or you have submitted it. You just, from the thesis, you draft 2 articles, and then it's part of how you, out of the final processes of getting graduated. So, but it is not a must or a requirement that you have to publish with your supervisor. I mean, is your intellectual property. If you don't want to, you want to publish alone, you could go ahead and do that. But I think for relationship's sake, because your supervisors contributed immensely to that work, so to be able to at least bring them in one paper, I think is goodwill that you have to show. I don't know if I'm able to answer your question correctly. Am I clear on that?
Yes, yes. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other question? I see some people are just joining us now. So, if there's no other question, I could just take the last lap again for the benefit of those that are just joining us now. But if there's another question, I should wait for that question to arise. Maybe with that, we could now navigate into saying some other things. So, any other question, please? So again, we're saying that the co-authoring with your supervisor is a fluid process. It's not one rigid process. What will be one's experience here will not be another man's experience there. So you should be ready for different outcomes, no matter the experience that your other colleagues had might not be your experience. So again, it's about good working relationship and understanding. If you have a good working relationship and understanding, conflicts may not arise. It's about understanding your supervisor, having a good and quality relationship. But like for me, my supervisor and I have a very good working relationship. So I understand perfectly well that my supervisor will not have the time to be involved. So I'm not going to be forcing her to make her contributions and the rest. I'll just allow her to proofread, and then if she wants to make her contributions, she will make her contributions. So by right, the real process is that she has to make her own contribution and also improve the content. But if your supervisor trusts you, now this is it. Now, like my hosts, we are 2 postdocs in the center. My host believe I'm an independent student, I can work alone. But for the other student, my host believes that she has to be guided. So my host is actively involved in her publications. But for my own publications, she allowed me to flow because she believes I am I can, I have learned some, I've gained some experience, and I really want to work alone because indeed it's a messy process if you want to co-author with your supervisor. The process is also messy. Then it is a kind of apprenticeship. You must know that you are learning. So keep yourself in that space of I'm learning now. Don't feel you know it all, because in the academics there's no one that can say like he or she is perfect in terms of their perspective and the rest of it. It's a fluid system, it's a fluid knowledge, so we're learning new things. So understand that you're under apprenticeship. Discuss early. Communication is key to everything, because with communication you'll be able to avert some disputes and some problems. Clear communications, emailed communications are more better and effective because they keep trail to the discussions that have gone on and the rest of it. So early and often, because the supervisor has agreed to co-author, so that sense of responsibility should be involved in terms of you trying to reach out to say this is the process, As a matter of fact, when you submit the paper with the name of the supervisor, she will be getting correspondence also. Although you will be registered as the corresponding author, but she will be receiving this feedbacks also. There will be CCing her in these emails and the rest of them. So email her on these emails. So discussing early and seeing that this work goes through is a better approach to take. Work plan, division of labor, and deadlines. Try to set deadlines. Allow your supervisor to accept those deadlines so that they'll be committed to those deadlines. And then also be patient with the process. It's a process that you will learn from, you will improve your skills, you'll be a better scholar and a more a bold scholar. So be patient with the process no matter how messy it will get. So that's it from my side. If any other person has something to say or contribute in terms of comment now, I think I will allow the floor for such comments to take place. Otherwise,
Yes, you can go ahead and ask questions before the end of the sessions. Ask questions or share your own experience as well.
otherwise, you can also maybe look at one of the points that have been raised and try to see how it's directly relevant to you. Okay, colleagues, can I ask the question? Why would you want to co-author with your supervisor? Can somebody just answer that question? Why would you want to co-author with your supervisor? Is anybody helping us on that? Why would you want to co-author with your supervisor? Why? What are the benefits you would derive if you co-author with your supervisor?
Dr. Emmanuel,
Yes.
I think for me, it would be more of, as you said, credibility and also improving my writing skills, and also having a critical reader, someone that I've worked with before, that I know when they review my work, I'm happy, you know. So I think that's why one of the reasons why I would want to co-author with my supervisor.
Yes. Yeah. That's a good point. Any other person wants to share on that? She raised so many valid points there. Credibility is key, and then also to enrich your skills, your writing skills, because sometimes you say you think you've done a lot, haven't spent time to work on your article, you put it together, and then you feel like, wow, this is ready to go, and then you send it to your supervisor. The supervisor looked at it and say, what's happening here? You've not started. What is happening here? What is happening there? You need to bring this together. It could be frustrating many times. Very frustrating because, okay, a perfect example I should give, a colleague of mine from Fort Air University, she has published like 5 papers. That's the very colleague I'm talking of. Now she came to UJ. Here in UJ, the hosts seem to be saying, no, Jervis, I need to work with you. Whereas back there in Fort Air, a supervisor was okay with what she was doing. The supervisor would tell her, go and do it. She will write it. So it's okay, submit. But in UJ, the host is more critical. She wants something different. She said that she needs to improve her skills. So my colleague will always come back to me and tell me how frustrated the process is. I think I've done well, but my supervisor is saying no. I don't think this should be a theoretical paper. This should not bring in a theoretical angle, but she wants a theoretical angle to be imputed into the paper. So that kind of tension was going on between them. But at the end of the whole process, my colleague emphatically would say she became a more better scholar and a more better writer through those processes. So it's something you need to look at. That's why I said be patient with the process. You become better after the whole process. As a matter of fact, when I became a postdoc, my host, our supervisor, the first meetings we had, when she began to school us on how to write articles, I took notes, and those notes indeed helped me to improve on my own drafting and writing of articles. So it's a process you will have to learn something new from, if only you're patient with the process. I know some students are cocky, some students want to show that they know, say, no, I've done this, I know this. No, it's not the way in the academics it should work. You should be able to relax yourself and learn something new from your supervisor. So any other person, can you tell us the disagreement, the cost? Because what are the costs of co-authoring with a supervisor? Can anyone just tell me the points I just laid down there now? What points resonates with you that you feel could be a problem in terms of the cost you have to pay to co-author with a supervisor?
Kumbulani, your hand was up earlier. You wanted to share us something.
Can you speak loud?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yes, I was saying Kumbulani's hand was up earlier.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you wanted to ask a
Okay.
question or...
Go ahead,
Okay.
please. Go ahead.
Thank you, Doc. I think what I picked on the course, I picked 2 critical issues for me. That sometimes it may, because of the time factors, busy schedule of the supervisor, then it may affect in terms of the duration, as it may take a longer time for you to publish. And also, if conflicts that may arise are not managed well, it may actually affect your relationship as you are progressing towards your final thesis product. So those are the 2 that stuck to me very well.
Very correct. Very, very correct. Because the supervisors, most of them are busy, very, very busy. You know. Okay. I see again. My another example I can give, I think, will also help us to understand such kind of messy situation was that my colleague, when my supervisor was working with her, so she will have to push the paper to when she sent the paper to my supervisor, my host will say, please give it to Emmanuel to look at it. And then my colleague will be saying, no, how will I give it to Emmanuel? Emmanuel is my, like in terms of we're postdocs. And then my host wants me to look at that paper, and then she looks at it like, no, why? At one time, she came to meet me and said, "Please, Emmanuel, Prof is going to ask you if you have looked at that paper. Tell her yes." I said, "No, what do you expect me to? Why will I say such?" She said, "No, you have to say such because this paper, I think I've done a lot on this paper." Because my colleague was now like feeling like, no, we're colleagues, then I shouldn't be going to a paper. You see, so supervisors could be really, really busy and will not want to, might not have that chance to look at the paper. Not that they don't want to, but they don't have that time. And it could take you. I told you of a paper that I was writing 1 year after is now I'm submitting that paper. At the end of the day, my supervisor I'm co-authoring with did not change anything on that paper I'm submitting. So if maybe she has told me before time to say, Emmanuel, go ahead and submit that paper, I will have done that. Maybe that paper will have been published by now, you see. So it's that kind of a messy thing. I know I was able to publish four papers in less than in 1 year and 3 months, so to say. But it should be more than that. That paper was supposed to come out. So, but because I'm co-authoring my supervisor, so that paper had to be delayed. So that's it. That's some of the messy areas you see when you're co-authoring with a supervisor. But I will not stop saying that you have to be patient with the process, because patience is key if you want to work with your supervisor on authoring any paper. So now, when dispute arise, can somebody just share with us what you think is the processes you need to follow when dispute arise? Somebody just help us. I think the processes are on the screen. So just help us speak to it again. What are the processes that you need to apply in terms of dispute resolution? Even if you have spoken before, there's an interactive section, so you can also come up again and maybe say something to us, because we're all learning something here. Again, I'm waiting for somebody to come up to say something, but something just popped in my mind in terms of dispute resolution when the co-author is not a UJ candidate or in UJ. I think according to the policy, it still applies. Even if you're not a part of the UJ system, if dispute arise, you can still follow the internal mechanism to settle these disputes. A colleague here said she's out of the university, so that dynamics is also something I just thought of. You can also follow the process and try to settle disputes, because the intellectual property is constructed while you were in UJ, or you were a candidate in UJ. Okay, for us to also look at what is the ethical guidelines. Can somebody just help us on what are the ethical, what publishers want to observe, their expectation that somebody should be a co-author? I think some journals are also coming to a point where they want to see that co-authors also show on the paper what their contributions are. It's getting to that point, but for now, these are the criterias that they observe to show that there's no conflict of interest. So, can somebody tell us about, in terms of participating in the reviewing process, what do you understand by that in terms of your supervisor participating in the review process? Can somebody just speak to that? Colleagues? Now, most probably, some of you have not published before. Now, when you submit your manuscript to any publisher, now they take some time to look at it. They look for, it's usually a blind peer review process, so they look for reviewers, 2 reviewers in the minimum, to look at the paper. And then when the paper is critically looked at and then is accepted for publication, usually it might come in the form of like publish as is. In other words, the paper is good, grammar, everything is correct, so they should publish as it is. Then the reviewers can say no, publish with minor changes. Or the reviewers can go and say no, the paper is not fit to be published. Then now you have a right to send your paper, or you say your manuscript, to another publisher to look at it. And in some cases, other publishers may accept it because there is politics also in this terrain. I remember a paper I submitted to like 4 journals. It was rejected, some of them because it is an African-based work. They wanted more of international flavor on the paper and the rest of it. So, but at the end of the day, one journal looked at the paper and said, "This is beautiful," and it was published. So the process is that they send it back to you. If they say publish but with minor corrections, they send it back to you. When they send it back, the reviewer will highlight areas that you need to work on, and then to enrich the content, and then send it back to them. Now bear in mind that the peer review process is also a learning process. Now when it is sent back to you, now it is supposed to go between you and your supervisor. You have to look at it first, now make those corrections, and then send it to your supervisor. Your supervisor will look at it and make some addendum and the rest of it, and before you now send it back to the publishers. But in many cases, the supervisor might not be available. The supervisor might say, "Go ahead and do it yourself and send it through." So, as I said, in many times you might be working alone in this journey, publishing that article. So, but yet it started with your supervisor, and it's supposed to, he or she is supposed to contribute in every step of the way. So the supervisor must participate, but they might not be able to participate. So you might be the one doing the entire work. Now, back to the UJ policy on authorship. Another thing that is emphasized here is final agreement must exist. You and your supervisor should be able to make an agreement going forward. That's why I say it's about good relationship and understanding. If you have a relationship, good understanding with your supervisor, you don't even need to do these agreements per se. Because the paper I want to publish with my supervisor, I did not tell her that, Prof, let's do some agreement first before we go into this paper. I didn't say so. But there was a student and also a worker in my department that approached me that she wanted to co-author with me. Now, looking at the complexities, immediately I asked for an agreement. I was like, we need to come to an agreement so we know what are the roles and responsibilities, time frame, and the rest of them. Then, when the student saw my terms, the student opted out. So, agreement is also a good thing to start with when you want to co-author with a supervisor or any other colleague. But to me, good relationship is a good thing, not to indicate to your supervisor that you did not trust him or her. So that's a key point I want us to understand. And so you must also make sure that all aspects of the paper your supervisor agrees to it. You don't rush to just submit because you feel your supervisor is busy. And so I make my corrections and I push it through, except you are explicitly told by your supervisor to go in that direction. Otherwise, pushing the paper without your supervisor's knowledge or acknowledgement, and when they have put their name on that paper, and their credibility also could be at stake. Like I said, I'm trying to publish a paper where I'm advocating for cohabiting relationship to be legalized. So if I'm involving my supervisors, then they need to see everything. You know, in writing an article, every sentence counts. Every sentence counts. So your supervisor must be able to look at it. If it's a complex paper, if it's a conceptual paper, and then look at it and then okay it before it is sent out. So that also should be put in mind. I think I've been able to go back again to the entire slide, and I will rest my case here now. If there is no other comment, questions, then we will need to close the session.
Are there any questions, colleagues, before we close the session?
So from my side, I would like to say thank you to all the participants. Thank you for your time, and I do hope that valuable lessons are learned from this presentation. Thank you so much.
Yes, Doctor. Thank you so much, Doctor, for such an informative session we had. And thanks to all the participants. The recording will be available tomorrow as well as the presentation slide. Thank you so much.